Welcome back to Lutherans Alive and our time with our special guest today, Bishop Kurt Kusserow. Bishop, again, we really appreciate the time that you're able to spend with us and to be able to share some of the personal experiences of the recent trip to the Middle East.
One of the gifts that we had was to be hosted by people who are ecumenical accompaniers at checkpoints. There are people, volunteers, who come from all around the world, Sweden and Great Britain and the United States and Australia, who come and their service is to help children going to school who have to go through a checkpoint to do so safely, and women going to work or going to shop who have to go through a checkpoint to do so safely. They also monitor checkpoints where a great number of men every day have to go through the same checkpoint to get to their places of work. Just to give a sense of how it's going and if their human rights are being honored the best that they can be in those situations.
That's interesting that folks volunteer from other countries to be there for such what we might consider a perfunctory, just kind of normal activities, but certainly very important places to be.
It is. It's very important. One of the experiences that they shepherded us through was a major checkpoint in Bethlehem, where every day hundreds of men gather and wait until the doors open and go through long lines and have to go through metal detectors and go through interrogations and show their paperwork 2 and 3, 4 times. They described to us what that experience was like. The time that we went through, the place was empty because it was the middle of the day when those who had gone through the checkpoint were at work and hadn't yet come back on their way home. And so we didn't face great crowds, but we were able to see the things that they had to face in going through the checkpoints just to get to work. And they told us of the experience of humiliation that many people experience every day in going through checkpoints, and just the supreme inconvenience of having to make that part of your daily life. Without actually going and walking through those places, it would be hard to understand. And that was such an important part of our sense of accompaniment, is to go and be with and understand from being with what it's like for people every day there.
Yeah, for those of us, who experience the freedom of coming and going without a thought, how demoralizing that could be to have that repetitive experience, daily reminders.
That's exactly right. For us, Americans on a tour bus, at every checkpoint that we went to, our tour bus driver would roll down the window and say, "A bunch of Americans," and in an instant we were let through. For us, it was not a problem. And so to have the experience of getting out of the bus and being led through by one of the ecumenical accompaniers helped us to see what otherwise we wouldn't have seen. And that is both the privilege that we were granted that the residents of that place don't have, and also the very great duress that people live in every day there. On the one side of the checkpoint in Bethlehem, on the Israeli side, the walls are beautiful and have banks of flowers growing up against them and banners that at the time said, "Happy Holidays of love and joy." And on the other side of the checkpoint, it was like going from color to black and white. Rubble, burned out cars, destroyed buildings, graffiti, broken glass. Just night and day on either side of the same wall. It was an astounding thing to experience.
Such a graphic contrast. Yeah. Well, I'm sure not necessarily the most pleasant experiences of the trip, but certainly eye-opening experiences that make very real the daily experiences, as you say, of people who must be confronted with that every day of their lives.
That's exactly right. In fact, after that experience, when we were back in Bethlehem visiting again, actually doing some souvenir shopping, we found a store that sells the ubiquitous olive wood manger scenes. But this one store sold the manger scene with a wall where the three wise men are separated from the Holy Family. And I thought, that's the one I have to buy. And I did. And it's on display now in the Synod office. So if you want to come and see what that experience is like, to look at a very familiar thing, the nativity scene, and to see it interrupted by the wall, which is so much a part of the life of the people there, it is worth the trip to come and see.
And certainly a very graphic illustration of how the reality of the day
Yes.
is interpreted by
Absolutely.
that birth of Christ.
Absolutely.
And that scene. Profound, powerful. Yeah. Well, we don't have a lot of time left, but I know you also wanted to at least spend a little bit of time talking about visits to local congregations.
That was one of the high points of our trip, to see congregations of Lutherans, Arab-speaking Lutherans in the West Bank, to be with them on Sunday morning for worship, and to visit the schools that they run. Most of the schools that they run are, well, in fact, all of the schools are coeducational and populated mostly by Muslims, because that's the population of the West Bank. And so the Lutherans have a role in educating their neighbors there across faith lines. And we found, to our great surprise and joy, that Christians and Muslims in the Lutheran schools in the West Bank live together in peace in ways that are hard for us to imagine, but is very much their reality.
Oh, that's encouraging news.
It is. It is.
And in terms of meeting local pastors and local congregational members, did they seem also to be as informed about the relationship between the United States, the Western Church, and
very much
the Middle
so.
Eastern Church?
They live out that relationship all the time, mostly in trying to negotiate Western Lutherans' desire to help them survive in the West Bank with monetary gifts, with trips of accompaniment, with resources and other supports. Germans and Finns and Swedes are all there along with us, helping the church, the Lutheran Church, to survive there. One of our pastors, Mitri Raheb, who is a pastor in Bethlehem, at Christmas Lutheran Church in Bethlehem, he has written several books that our viewers may be familiar with. When asked about the solution to the problems that they face, he said he's not optimistic, but deeply hopeful. And to me, that's exactly the word that I think we can bring back then in our visit of accompaniment coming back this way, that even when it is unlikely that the situation will immediately improve, we can still be people of hope.
I think that's an important message to share. And unfortunately, it has to be the final message of today's program, because we have filled it with a lot of very interesting and useful information, and we thank you for sharing it with us. And we do look forward to the second installment. We'll be very happy to hear and to share some more of the experiences that you had. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. It's been a blessing to us all. Thank you for being with us today on Lutherans Alive. We hope you've enjoyed this opportunity to hear some of the personal experiences of our bishop in his recent trip to the Middle East, and we hope you'll join us for future segments of Lutherans Alive. Good day, and God bless you.